welcome viewers. I'm Pia and you're watching America 360 on NewsX World. On that note, let's take a look at the headlines this hour. US and Russia have found no compromise on key issues with regards to the peace talks, particularly the issue of territorial concessions. Kremlin has stated that talks with the United States have been useful, but a lot of work ahead is left on the path to peace. Russia and Ukraine have stated that they are ready for more talks with the United States to end almost 4 years of war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has emphasized that any deal for a truce must offer lasting peace and must ensure Moscow does not strike back. The United States has paused all immigration applications, including green card and U.S. citizenship processing filed by immigrants from 19 non-European nations, citing concerns over national security and public safety. Amid Donald Trump's immigration crackdown, he has stated that he does not want Somali immigrants in the country. His comments come as authorities plan an enforcement operation in Minnesota's Somali community. The Taliban government has rejected any links to the National Guard shooting that claimed one life and wounded another soldier in Washington, D.C. The ADP employment report has showcased that U.S. private payrolls unexpectedly declined in November. Private employment decreased by 32,000 jobs after an upwardly revised 47,000 increase in October. U.S. President Donald Trump has stated that he would be announcing his choice to succeed Jerome Powell as head of the Federal Reserve early next year, further teasing out a months-long audition process. French President Emmanuel Macron has arrived in China. He is expected to put pressure on his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping to help secure a ceasefire in Ukraine and discuss trade relations. Well, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. Russia and Ukraine have now expressed readiness for further negotiations following talks in Moscow between Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. President Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner as well. Despite discussions, no progress was made on the key issue of territorial control, with Russia insisting that Ukraine cede the 4 regions it claims as its own for peace to be possible. Meanwhile, the Kremlin has emphasized its commitment to diplomacy. It's also warned that Russia is ready to confront Europe if the conflict escalates. In the same breath, it is stated that the talks that have taken place are the first step towards peace. It's a part of a larger process. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has insisted that any peace deal must ensure lasting security and prevent future Russian aggression. As fighting continues, especially in the disputed regions of Pokrovsk and Zaporizhia, NATO has now urged Washington and Moscow to involve European allies in the talks as well. NATO chief Mark Rutte has highlighted the importance of maintaining Ukraine's military strength while negotiations unfold. Joining us on the broadcast is Mr. Raymond Vickery, international affairs expert and former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for taking out time and speaking to us on NewsX World. There's a lot to unpack over here, so I'll go through it one by one. A 5 hours long conversation has transpired yesterday in Moscow between Putin and Steve Witkoff as well. Nothing much has come out of it, but Kremlin has described it as a first step in the path to peace. What do you make of this rhetoric?
Well, thanks very much for having me and allowing me to comment. You know, peace, like war, must be waged, and that requires a strategy. It requires partners. The Trump administration, President Trump, has not taken that approach at all. He's taken that of a real estate developer doing a transaction, sending Mr. Witkoff and his son-in-law to Moscow, is taking 2 real estate-oriented moguls who really don't have any experience in international diplomatic matters, much less overall geopolitics. My understanding is they basically talked about deals that they could be made. Uh, President Trump has taken exactly the wrong approach with Putin, and Putin is playing him like a violin. Putin is a throwback to the old empire building days of Russia, the empire building days really of the world, which we jettisoned after World War II in favor of a multilateral cooperative approach with basic principles as expressed in the UN Charter of non-invasion, non-interference, non-aggression. Putin is focused on territory. He wants to reinstitute the Russian Empire. And so you're having so-called negotiators pass as ships in the night with Putin. Putin is threatening war against the rest of Europe, and his approach will not change so long as there isn't some sort of sufficient pressure from other great democracies like India, Western Europe, Japan, as well as in North America, both economically and strategically in the military sphere. So this is an outcome which is to be expected and suits President Putin very much in going forward and trying to do a reconstruction of the Russian Empire.
Indeed, and even as the talks are underway, kinetic action only seems to be escalating on the ground. We've seen counter-strikes and counter-strikes take place, the action really continuing on the front lines as well. There have been some claims that Kremlin has made with regards to Pokrovsk, which we know is a key logistics hub for the Ukrainians. There was a statement published by Kremlin yesterday that Russia has managed to capture this key city. In your assessment, to what degree is this a setback for the Ukrainians if this claim holds true? And if it does not, then what is the reason for Russia to bluff?
Well, Russia plays a two-faced game. One is the progress on the battlefield, which it claims even if it hasn't been made. And second is trying to destabilize Western Europe so that they lose the will to support Ukraine. The fall of this city, which is a major transportation hub, would be significant, but not dispositive of the invasion. The fact is, President Putin cares nothing for casualties. Cannon fodder of young men and women are just a part of empire building to him. So he understands only pressure, both economically and militarily. And so long as he feels he is making incremental gains, even though it's costing him in Russian lives, in treasure, and across the board weakening Russia, he doesn't see it that way. He sees it in the old 19th century way of empire building, and it's a very unfortunate approach. But sending two real estate moguls to talk with him about some sort of deal is not going to influence him at all.
All right, sir. With that, I request you to stay on with us as we're tracking further developments, this time from the United States itself. We're learning that the U.S. has paused all immigration applications, including green card and U.S. citizenship processing filed by immigrants from 19 non-European countries. The Trump administration has cited concerns over national security and public safety to justify its decision. The pause applies to people from 19 countries that were already subjected to a partial travel ban in June, placing further restrictions on immigration. Meanwhile, the USCIS has stated that the pause was prompted by the Thanksgiving week shooting near the White House, in which an Afghan national is accused of killing one National Guard soldier and wounding another. It cited the incident as justification for heightened scrutiny of applicants from affected countries. The agency has also stated that it would carry out a full review of all approved benefit requests for immigrants who arrived in the U.S. during the Biden administration. With us on the broadcast still is Mr. Raymond Vickery. So how do you view this move? We do know that the Donald Trump administration has been cracking down on immigration, but in the aftermath of the tragic killing of one of the National Guard troop members in Washington, D.C. outside the White House, it seems that the action has just escalated.
Thanks again for allowing me to comment. This is really a part of President Trump's political ace in the hole, if you will. When all else fails, he goes to immigration and attempting to whip up xenophobia, particularly among his base. Tragically for the United States, that's effective with his base. I do not believe in the longer run it's going to be effective with the American people, and we will see the results of that at the midterm elections, I believe, next year. But whether it be banning immigration from these 19 countries, or whether it be attacking Somali immigrants as he's done, or saying that this one deranged Afghan who had worked with the CIA in Afghanistan, it's all fodder for his anti-immigration approach. It's racist in some aspects.
Yes.
It's certainly xenophobic, but it's a part of his mindset. It's what he has used from the very first, talking about immigrants as criminals, as the inmates of an insane asylum, and he doubles down on this immigration issue when he has not had success in bringing peace in Ukraine, when inflation continues to go up in the United States, and when there is significant pushback when he tries to label the press as public enemies and attack universities.
And the Epstein scandal as well. I apologize to interject, but there's a point I'd like to make here, because with regards to Somalis that you'd referred to, the derogatory remarks that Trump has made, accusing Somalis of killing each other, this all has not gone down quite well, not just with the Somali immigrant community, I beg your pardon, within the United States of America, but even those in Somalia itself, to the point where their Prime Minister, Hamza Abdi Bare, has stated that Trump has insulted other countries along the same lines before, and it may be best to ignore his remarks. Does it really augur well for Donald Trump to continue his approach of taking to Truth Social and firing these these insults in a very crude fashion?
Well, you're quite right to point out that it is in a very crude fashion, and it hurts the standing of the United States of America. The United States of America has been a leader in humane approaches to those who are refugees seeking asylum from violence. It has altered its approach to provide for racial and national equity in terms of immigration. We are a nation of immigrants. Two of Donald Trump's three wives have been immigrants. This is exactly right. And you're right to point out the Jeffrey Epstein situation. It's the old approach. When you have a problem that you don't want people to look at, you draw attention to something else. And the something else in the case of President Trump is immigration and xenophobia, the fear of people who don't look exactly like his base does, and it's been his go-to approach, and it's very harmful to the United States because the world is one now, and peace and prosperity are indivisible and have to be pursued with a strategy across the board.
Absolutely. The world has become quite cosmopolitan, as you have put it. And the US, of course, being the superpower of the world, has been setting an example for quite a while now. So I request you to stay on with us as we're tracking some other very crucial developments, this time from the economic sphere in the United States. We're learning that President Donald Trump has stated that he will announce his nominee to succeed Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell in early 2026, extending a months-long selection process. Powell's term ends in May, and Trump has stated that he has narrowed his choice to one person, though he has not confirmed whether that candidate is Kevin Hassett, his top economic advisor, though there is a lot of speculation regarding this. Trump has noted that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who led the search process, does not want the job. Other contenders include Fed Governors Michelle Bowman and Christopher Waller, former Governor Kevin Warsh, and BlackRock executive Rick Rader. Trump has made clear his preferences and that he prefers a Fed chief who supports lower interest rates, although economists warn that persistent inflation and a buoyant economy may limit any new leader's ability to ease policy. Analysts say that the next Fed chair will face a divided policy-making committee, ongoing inflation above the 2% target as well. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Raymond Vickery. Interesting development because the Federal Reserve in the United States of America has historically been an independent body. Its decisions are taken independent to that of the United States government. Which brings us to concerns that this particular appointment that might take place next year, considering the fact that Jerome Powell's term is ending by May, that could have some political color as well. Trump has been trying to lower the federal rates, but keeping in mind the inflation that is taking place, the tariff policies that have backfired, how do you think this process will transpire, and what are the ramifications if Trump does get his way?
Well, thanks again for allowing me to comment. Make no mistake about it, President Trump is trying to alter the form of government that we have in the United States, whether it be in separation of powers, checks and balances, but with the Congress and the courts being co-equal to the executive, or whether it being an independent Federal Reserve. He wants to go to an authoritarian approach, an approach which is in Russia or in China, in which he has the power in order to be able to decide things economically, politically, across the board. And of course, one of the reforms that we've had in the United States for more than a century now, which has had bipartisan support, is an independent Federal Reserve. And there's a very good reason for it. Politicians want something which immediately will boost the economy, but may have disastrous longer-term effects. And one of those is the interest rate. Interest rate lowering is like sugar to a baby. Immediately there is some positive energetic effect, but longer term you get into an inflation which can hurt everybody in all classes. And so this is what he's interested in doing, is to eliminate the Federal Reserve as an independent source of power and government in the United States. It has not worked in the past. I predict that saner heads are going to prevail with the midterm elections and going to 2028. But again, make no mistake about it, this drive to authoritarianism is part and parcel of President Trump's mindset and what he wants to do.
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you for taking out time, of course, sharing your insights, perspective and analysis with our viewers on NewsX World. On that note, we're shifting focus away from what's taking place on the economic front in the United States of America to more news coming in. We're learning that Taliban Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi has now emphasized that the suspected gunman Ramanullah Lakhanwal was trained by the US and not affiliated with the Afghan government. Lakhanwal, who is accused of fatally shooting one National Guard member in the United States of America and injuring another outside the White House in Washington, D.C., pleaded not guilty to the charges. US officials have confirmed that Lakhanwal had been part of a CIA-backed partner force that fought the Taliban in Afghanistan before being resettled in the US after the American military withdrawal in 2020. With us on the broadcast is Major General G.G. Dwivedi, International Relations and Strategic Defense Expert, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. A very clear message by the Taliban government distancing itself from Ramanullah Lakhanwal, who is accused of having killed a National Guard troop member and injuring another grievously in Washington, D.C. outside the White House on Thanksgiving. What do you make of the Taliban government's statement calling the fact that the accused actions were the result of US involvement in Afghanistan? What sort of geopolitical ramifications could this have?
Well, Pia, firstly, thank you for having me on your show. Always a pleasure. Now, this specific instance, we need to go a little bit into the background. After all, Ramanullah Lakhanwal, and as to how he came to US, what was his background. You know, when US forces were there in Afghanistan, number of Afghanistan nationals were cooperating with the US forces, and they were in the different units, and some of them were the intelligence units, and Ramanullah Lakhanwal is known to have been part of the intelligence unit which was cooperating with US forces. Now, when after the chaotic withdrawal of US forces in 2021, such people were feared that there will be retribution from Taliban, so they were given asylum in US, and that's how Lakhanwal came to US and got the asylum. That's basically the background. Now, he appears to have been radicalized, and possibly he was suffering from some mental issues, and that's why he was involved in shooting in Washington, D.C. on 26 November, where he fatally injured one of the National Guard and other did survive. Now, I think what Foreign Minister of Afghanistan, Muttaqi, has stated that they had nothing to do with it. In fact, this whole procedure of providing asylum to the Afghanistan nationals is not legal as per him. Well, that's the where these issue stands today. So, if we take a pragmatic look, well, Taliban are not involved in this because they didn't come. He didn't come through any of the channels of Taliban. He was given asylum by the U.S. and therefore it is purely U.S. procedure that he happened to be in Washington, and unfortunately he is involved in the shooting where one National Guard was fatally wounded. So that's where it stands. I think Foreign Minister of Afghanistan's statement is right in that way, that they have no issue or they have no involvement in the issue, and this is purely a procedure by the Americans providing asylum to such nationals who cooperated with them during their war in Afghanistan. Pia.
Indeed, and I have another quick follow-up to this because we do know that the Americans have been eyeing the Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan. So in that context, how might Taliban's attempt to distance Afghanistan from the actions of Lakhanwal, who served with the CIA, then sort of complicate or weaken narratives by the United States of America that yes, the region is still unstable and it still requires footholds, including the Bagram Air Base?
Absolutely, Pia, because Americans have a strategic interest in Afghanistan and they have been vying to get a foothold in Bagram Air Base. But Taliban has very emphatically denied that because they said that they do not want to have any foreign forces on their soil. And to that extent, even China has pitched in along with the Taliban government. So the point is that geopolitics is as it is very dynamic and I would say very unstable because as far as today is concerned, Taliban government really is not very stable because there are a lot of factors which lead to instability and also the neighborhood. This relationship with Pakistan, they are very hostile. They are having often firefights. So I think while American interests are there in Afghanistan, but Taliban is not going to, I think, oblige the Americans by providing them foothold in Bagram Air Base. And they are using Pakistan to keep an eye on Taliban. That's why you see that kind of a newborn homie between Islamabad and Washington, where even the chief of the army staff of Pakistan Army was hosted by President Trump, and the kind of close relation that has developed recently. One of the reasons is that Americans want to have a close eye on Afghanistan, and that's where they feel that Pakistan can be used to that extent. But I don't think Taliban are going to oblige the Americans by providing them foothold in Bagram Air Base. Pia.
All right, sir. With that, I'd like to thank you for taking our time, of course, sharing your analysis and, of course, providing context to our viewers as well. On that note, we're shifting focus away from what's transpiring as far as this particular case is concerned to news coming in. According to payroll firm ADP, the US private sector has lost 32,000 jobs in November, marking a surprise decline that could increase expectations of an interest rate cut next week. Economists had forecasted a modest rise in employment, but the data has shown a broad-based slowdown led primarily by small businesses. ADP chief economist Neela Richardson has stated that the drop reflects cautious consumer behavior and uncertainty in the broader macroeconomic environment. Meanwhile, the figures are considered less reliable by some analysts. They remain closely watched, particularly as official employment data has been incomplete due to a recently concluded federal government shutdown. The weak employment numbers come amid speculation over the next Federal Reserve chair, with President Trump's top economic advisor, Kevin Hassett, emerging as the frontrunner to succeed Jerome Powell when his term ends in May. With that, viewers, it's a wrap on America 360. We will continue to track all of these updates very, very closely, but due to paucity of time, we dip into a quick short break.